Welcome to Old Black Hollywood. Today, I have with me my guest, Jacey Falk, who is a historian on jazz music. He's here to talk about Benny Golson, who was a saxophonist, well, actually, who is a saxophonist. He's one of the last surviving link to the golden age of modern jazz. So, JC, welcome to Old Black Hollywood. Thank you for joining us today.
Well,
I
thank
am not really familiar with the jazz scene back then, but you are. And
Okay.
one thing I do know about the jazz scene is a lot of these old Black Hollywood actresses were jazz singers too, like
Yeah.
Lena Horne, Abby Lincoln, and Ruth Brown.
Yeah.
So I know you have a lot of stories to tell me about them, I'm sure, with
Yes.
of course Benny Golson. So JC Falk, the floor is all yours. Please let's start talking about Benny Golson.
Uh, well, Claire, thank you for having me. You're making me blush. I love your vibe and your spirit. So,
Thank you.
and I love your site and everything. It's just I
Oh
love it.
wow, thank you.
Great, great, great. So, you want to know about Benny Golson? What do you want to know
Let me
about
know about Benny Golson, the jazz musician, okay, the saxophonist. You told me that he was a songwriter. He worked with Quincy
Benny?
Jones as well.
Oh yeah.
So I do have a picture of him on my Facebook. I did post it
Okay.
and when he was much younger. So
Right.
do you know how he got started? Tell me what you know about him.
Well, not only am I, you say I'm a historian, I guess I am, but I'm also a producer as well as a comedian. I wear a lot of hats, but I have been with Benny Golson for about 23 years. I have been his agent and producer and everything for
Mm.
23 years. When I opened my agency, he was one of my first artists, and he is still with me at 94. At 90,
94 years old.
just turned 94 about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Sharp as a tack. Uh, Slow down a little, because he's 94. So he's like, I don't need all these gigs anymore. Just if it's good, we'll take it. But he's done everything. A few months ago, he was put into the Smithsonian Institute. So
Congratulations.
yeah, I mean that's we were all like blown away. But Benny is a very special person because he didn't want to be just a jazz musician. He wanted to be more than that. And he did. He did. And a lot of the guys from that era, Benny, Quincy Jones, Oliver Nelson, Ray Brown, they all wanted to be more than just jazz musicians, playing a bunch of gigs. And some didn't get to expand their wings and fly. Um, some, because I know them and I can say it, some allowed bigotry and racism to hold them back, and then they made excuses. And then there were others that excelled, like Benny and Quincy and Oliver Nelson, and they wrote the soundtrack of our lives to a degree. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Benny, a lot of the television reruns that you see, Benny Golson wrote the music.
Hmm.
Just like a lot of the movies that you see, Quincy Jones wrote the music,
Mm-hmm.
or Oliver Nelson wrote the music. Oliver Nelson passed away. He was a saxophonist and composer too. He passed away in the 70s. He was about 46 years old.
Oh, that's
Um,
now.
yeah, but he was a brilliant arranger, and he and Benny and Quincy were pretty tight, the three of them, and
Mm-hmm.
they were the top three guys, top three black arrangers for movies and television in Hollywood. And we're
Can you
talking,
name some of the television shows or movies that Benny Golson had
sure,
composed for?
sure. Um, you may not remember them, but the biggest one is MASH. He wrote a lot
Oh,
of music for MASH.
yeah. I watched Match when I was a little girl.
Yeah, see, Mannix. You remember Mannix?
No, I don't know.
Mannix, it was off by the time I was born, but it was a detective show. And I love the reruns of it. Mannix is a bad dude, but he wrote a lot of the music for Mannix, the Karen Valentine show, the Partridge Family.
Okay.
He wrote tons of music for the Partridge.
Really? Oh,
Um,
wow.
oh golly! And then as far as movies go, he did. He don't like to talk about this one, but he did the second Cheech and Chong movie.
Oh.
But he wrote it under a pseudonym because he didn't want to be associated with drugs. You know, Cheech and Chong's whole thing was marijuana and drugs.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want any part of that. So he wrote all the music for the movie, got paid beautifully, but wrote it under a pseudonym. You know.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, I'm trying to think of some of the other movies he did. Oh, if you hadn't asked, I could have rattled it right off. But bunch of movies. He wrote more for television than movies. But you know, brilliant man. And in 2004, he didn't write for this movie, but he was the plot of the movie. Do you remember the movie The Terminal with Tom Hanks? It was a Spielberg movie.
Yes, yes, yes.
Tom Hanks is stuck in an airport terminal.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
He's stuck in there to get Benny Golson's autograph. So Benny was the plot of the movie.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the movie, you see Tom get the autograph and he cries, and Benny's like, "Okay, I'm about to play." And, you know, it's a really sweet ending, but it's a sweet movie. It's a really sweet movie.
You know something, JC? It's interesting how music played a major role when it came to movies and television, as you mentioned. You know, it's a music that really brings a scene out, that tries to introduce a character in movies. And amazingly, you know, to learn about these old Black Hollywood actors, they were singers at one point. Yeah. They sang jazz, you know, again, like Lena Horne, Ruth Brown, and Abby Lincoln, and so much more as well. But it's interesting how they all intertwine with each other, film and music, you know? So it's go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, well, you have to understand, you know, back in those days of Lena Horne and going into Abby Lincoln, you know, a Black woman or a Black man could sing. They didn't want to see them on film unless they were a coon or someone shucking and jiving or a mammy or a butler or some, you know, buffoonish nigger. And that was it. So they sang, but you know, when you're singing, you can be as classy and as hip as you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
See? Just so happens, Lena Horne was lucky. She was a singer, and she even says in her one-woman show, my manager must have had something on this casting director because they were not giving anybody my color screen test, you know, and I got one. So you know, and that was fortunate. Abby Lincoln was a singer first. They had no intention of putting her in movies, but she had two great managers who saw money, and they got her into movies. You know, the first movie she did was The Girl Can't Help It. It was like she just sang in the movie, you know. And that's another thing you have to remember too. A lot of the numbers that they did, a lot of the times they were in these movies, they did songs. They didn't act. They only did a number, and then the number could be cut out of the movie. You see, so it was what it was, and you could keep working as a singer. You could keep working. Okay, so you cut me out of the film. That's okay. I just did 2 weeks at this club, and I got paid XYZ, so I'm still able to feed my family and so forth and so on. If you notice, they didn't have a lot of Black male musicians in movies like that.
Right.
You know, Billy Eckstine, who was brilliant.
Right. Yes.
He didn't get any movie roles.
Okay, just sang.
He sang. Yeah, he didn't get any movie roles. Louis Armstrong did, you know, because Joe Glazier knew what Louis Armstrong had. You know, Joe Glazier was his manager, and a brilliant manager at that. But, you know, guys like Billy Eckstine or I can't even think of it anymore, but, you know, they didn't get movie roles.
Right.
You know, unfortunately. Right. So it's crazy how it all kind of works. But, you know, these people started out as musicians.
Now, how about Ruth Brown?
Well, Ruth, that was like my musical godmother. And she was great to me. She didn't really do movies. I mean, she did a couple.
Yes.
It was later in life. You know, John Waters got her started in movies. She did Hairspray.
Yes, Hairspray.
And she actually told him no. She thought he was joking with her. She told me herself, she said, I thought he was messing with me, you know. And he said, I want you to wear a blonde wig and a blue tutu. And she said, are you nuts? I'm making a comeback. She was making a comeback at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she said, you know, she had worked as a maid, you know, and she was broke and she was making a comeback. And John Waters found her and he said, I love you. I'd like you to be
Mm-hmm.
in that movie. And she said, no, no, thanks. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
he says, no, no, please. And he harassed her. She said, okay, fine. What do you want? And he said, I'd like you to wear a blonde wig and a blue tutu. She says, you're crazy. I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
No. And he says, I would lose my fans. And he pulled out a record cover that she did with Mel Lewis and Thad Jones. And she was wearing a blonde wig. And she said, oh, Lord, well, now I got to do it because I wore a blonde wig before. So she did it. She said it was one of the best things she ever did because that took everything off of her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but, you know, she was fortunate. She did that, but she did a few not talkies. What am I talking about? She did a few race movies in the 50s.
Yes.
You know, oh Lord, Rhythm. I can't think of the name of the movie, but you know, it was shot at the Apollo, and it was Amos Milburn, Lionel Hampton, Aunt Ruth was in it. I think Nat Cole was in it, but it just showed off all these. It was like an extravaganza of black artists and black
Yes. Yes.
musicians.
Yes.
You know, but that was about it. Once again, she didn't have any acting roles. You know, she was herself
Mm-hmm.
with her band.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Now, did Benny Golson ever have an opportunity to work with Lena Horne at all?
he knew them. He knew her. He worked with a lot of people. He was one of the top arrangers. I don't know if he worked with Miss Horne, but he worked with, you know, Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee,
Mm-hmm.
Lou Rawls. I mean, Mickey Rooney. I mean, he worked with everybody. He was their arranger for their show, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
their nightclub act. And so he worked with all of them. So I don't think he worked with Miss Horne though. Not that I know of.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Quincy worked with her quite a bit.
With
You
Lena
know,
Horne.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You
Okay. Okay.
know, matter of fact, he produced a couple of her records. Um, you know, her one woman show was on his record label, Quest.
Oh wow, that must have been really something exciting for Quincy Jones to work with the, famous Lena Horne. The
Well,
opportunity to have our conversation with her and to direct her with her music and everything.
Miss Horne was cool. I got to meet her. I got to meet
Oh,
her at her.
you met her
Yeah,
personally. So
I
tell me
met her.
about your meeting with Lena Horne.
I met her at her 80th birthday party,
Oh wow.
Lincoln Center. And at that time, I was fresh out of college, and I was working for Lionel Hampton. And he or his manager, Bill Titone, couldn't make the party, so I ended up going. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and it was beautiful. It was fun. She was funny. Um, I walked up on her. I didn't realize it was her. And I walked up on her, and I said, "Oh my God, it's." Yeah. And she smiled, and I said, "Miss Horne, it's an honor." And she said, "Well, thank you, honey." And I introduced myself, and she was very sweet, very nice. And then I said, "I'd love to take you out." And she said, "I think I'm a little too old for you." And I went, mm-mm. And she chuckled, and that was that. And
Uh,
her assistant and I became very good friends,
right.
and they really helped me out a lot. And I got to meet Miss Horne once in person, and once we chatted on the phone. And she was
Wow.
cool. She was real cool.
Well, that's really good. That's good. So now tell me about your ambitions, your goal to complete a documentary about the Benny Golson.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me
Uh,
about that. How's that
my
coming along for you?
We're almost done. We're just trying to finish the film. We're about three-fourths done. The music licensing is the drag. That cost a lot of money because it's a lot of music.
Mm-hmm.
If I had done a documentary on trees, I could have had it done in a week. But with Benny Golson, there's so much music,
Right.
and you have to use his original recordings because they're all classics. So that has been a task, finishing the film because we're trying to raise the last bit of money for the music licensing.
Mm.
And, but like I said, the film is three-fourths done. It will be a remarkable documentary, and I'm winning an Oscar for it.
You better.
I'm
Definitely.
putting it in the universe, but The film has got Quincy Jones in it, Tom Hanks, uh, the rap group Naughty by Nature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were the first group to sample Benny's music.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And the she's not in the film, but the last person to sample it was about a year ago, Katy Perry,
Mm.
the young lady.
I know Katy Perry. I don't know her
Katy,
personally, but I heard of listen I listened to music before. I
yeah,
heard of
but
her. Yeah.
Perry has sampled some of his stuff. But back to the film, Branford Marsalis is in it. Uh,
Ah, Brandon Marsalis.
John,
Mm.
he's in it. Got some great names. Kevin Eubanks. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have the last interviews
Mm-hmm.
of Candido Camero, Jimmy Heath,
Mm-hmm.
songwriter Johnny Mandel, and pianist McCoy Tyner. So
Wow, on documentary. Okay.
it's going to be a hell of a documentary. I promise you that. It really,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's been a task. It's been about 4.5 years, but it's been beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And people have been wonderful to me,
Mm-hmm.
and Benny, he's in it, and he's having a ball because I finish a scene, we edit and I send it to him. So what do you think of that? He looks at it and he says, "Oh my God, this is beautiful." A couple
Mm-hmm.
of times he called me and he was a little teary eyed.
Oh.
I said, "You all right?" He says, "Oh, just yeah, I watched it, and this just got me thinking about so and so. They've been gone for so long, and I miss them." And I said, "Well, that's a good sign. If
Mm-hmm.
it's if it's making him feel warm or
Emotional. Mm-hmm.
nostalgic stuff, and then it should do it for the viewer, and that's a good.
Mm-hmm. So what actually inspired you to embark in this journey to developing and producing this documentary about Benny Golson?
Well, I've known him so long, and he's so close to me, and the man, he's just a he's just a special person. Benny Golson is, I mean, and I'm not, people say that he's a special person, and it's just kind of a insincere blanket statement. The person's really a jerk, but Benny's not that way at all. He's human, but he's a good person. I mean, he's very supportive of people. He's kind and he's loving, and he's done so much.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you don't like something, you should be the one to change it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
wait for anyone to open a door for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a stick of dynamite and blow a hole in the wall and come in and go as I please.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the way it was. I felt that somebody needed to do Benny's story, and nobody wanted to. And I said, okay, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. I want to do film and television. Anyway, I've been in music all these years. I'd like to go into film and television. Benny did, you know, Quincy did. And I said, well, I'd like to do this as well. And and I also felt that the stories being told about Black entertainers, especially Black jazz musicians, were disgusting. Nina Simone had a saying, the dirtier you are, the more you're a hit. And there's some validity to that. A lot of the stories you hear about jazz musicians are sick. They had 35 illegitimate children. They were sex addicts. They did a bunch of drugs. They were deviants. Benny Golson didn't do any of that. He didn't do any drugs. He didn't have a bunch of kids out of wedlock. He, as a musician, you go to town to town. That's what they think of musicians. He didn't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's been married to the same woman now, about 65 years. Very religious man. Just a good person. He was a family man, and everybody respects him. Everybody respects him.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to tell that story. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from, we'll say, Billie Holiday or something, but different different cloth. You know, they weren't cut from the same cloth, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to see because the sad thing is, every time I mention jazz musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and I have friends who say this, and I've had to like lay into my friends. They all say, I've heard it so many times. Well, all those old musicians did drugs. They didn't. That was a small percent. But because of the propaganda machine of a fellow named Ashlander and J. Edgar Hoover, because they didn't want white women sleeping with black men, and they
Mm-hmm.
felt black musicians would corrupt white society, they painted these disgusting pictures. And the sad thing is, 70 years later, people still believe this. And it's not true. It's not
Mm-hmm.
true. A lot of those musicians were family men. A lot of them were educated. Benny has a college degree. He went to Howard University.
Oh wow, HBCU.
There
Mm-hmm.
you go. Gigi Grice was one of his best friends. College man. Lou Donaldson, college man.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois Jacquette, college man. These were men
Mm-hmm.
who studied music. And the majority of these musicians knew music. They didn't just read. That's the other thing about jazz musicians. You think, oh, well, they just hit and they start playing. No, 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 no. They know their craft. As Quincy Jones says, in order to break the rules, you have to first master the rules.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's so many myths about jazz musicians and other black entertainers. And I'm doing this film because I wanted to kind of shatter that myth, you
Oh,
know,
good.
and if you don't, like I said, I didn't like what I was seeing, so you do something about it. I'm not going to wait for the white man. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to wait for the white man to paint a picture when I know my colors and I got a brush.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And beautiful thing is, there were a lot of white musicians, and I can't lie to you. There were a lot of supportive white musicians
Okay.
who were in the trenches with the black ones.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy Rich, Johnny Mandel. I mean, these good guys, who, who outraged Frank Sinatra. I've heard great stories. Quincy's told me stories about Sinatra, how he would physically fight you, over his black musician. Tony Bennett's another one. I mean, they didn't play, they were good guys. And they didn't like the way their fellow musicians were being treated because of race.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell the story that you want to see. And that's
Mm-hmm.
in this film.
Jacey, I like the fact that you're very transparent with your story you're telling about, the reason why you're moving forward with this documentary about Benny Golson, and you know so much about him already. And I'm glad that you're sharing his life with the world through his music and the people he met along, okay,
Yeah.
who's supporting this. Now, tell my viewers, actually, what is it that you yourself have done or contributed to the music industry, jazz, television? Because you said yourself in the beginning that you are an agent,
Yeah.
you're a producer. So tell my viewers more about you and information of how can they reach out to you to learn more or to donate to your GoFundMe fund for the Benny Golson documentary.
Sure. Well, you want to know what I've done? Well, I started out as a comedian and a singer. I'm still a singer, still
Mhm.
performing. Um, and it's funny how things just kind of happen because I had a record deal, I was doing all this great stuff, but my first manager said, "Look, kid, until you get your big break, you work in my office and I'll teach you how to produce and I'll do all this stuff." And he did. His name was Bill Titone. He was Lionel Hampton's guy for 40 years. And he taught me the business. He taught me the whole industry. And I opened up MF Productions, my company. And we've been in business now for 23 years. And it's so funny because Ruth Brown told me, she said, "You're out here making everybody else rich. Your career is going to suffer." And to a degree, she was right because I put so much energy in producing all these other people and all. I did a bunch of them. I'm still doing them. I've done all these all-star shows that have toured, like the Legends of the Bandstand, the Latin Jazz All-Stars, Defenders of the Groove. Oh man, tons of them. But they've toured. and I put all this energy in that, my career kind of took a back seat. But it's okay. I still got the money. So so I paid my bills. I'm not crying the blues.
Mm-hmm.
But and then but you do what you gotta do. And sometimes life just takes you down a certain path. As long as you get to the goal, that's all that matters,
Mm-hmm.
reach your goal. That's all that matters. So but yeah, that's it for me. Um it's funny right now, and Benny Golson is one of the reasons we're doing this. Uh, he and several others says, "When are you going to start singing again? When are you going to make another record? When are you going to do?" And I've heard it enough. I said, you know what? Okay, I think I better do something. And then I've started making a new record now. So by the fall, it should be released.
Oh, good for you. Good for
Yeah,
you. And I
yeah.
will support.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So we
So
got
how
the
can my viewers reach out to you to donate? Is it go what's your
it's GoFundMe. Look up.
okay?
I don't know the site. It's GoFundMe, and look up Benny Golson, Looking Beyond the Horizon.
Okay, Benny Golson, Looking Beyond the Horizon.
That's it.
Okay.
And please make a donation. We'll
Mm-hmm,
accept whatever.
mm-hmm,
10,000, $5. It doesn't matter. We're grateful. We're grateful for whatever you give the film. And we appreciate it.
mm-hmm,
I appreciate it.
mm-hmm,
Benny Golson's story. It really needs to be told. It's a great story about a great man, and it's a bunch of great people. And and I'm not just saying this because it's mine, but it's going to be a great film.
okay.
I've got a great motion graphics guy doing things. I've got a great editor. I've got a great musical director who has written some original songs for the film. I mean, it's a great team that is working with this thing. Man, I can say it, man.
Oh wow.
It's going to be a bad film.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you. 'Cause I can see your enthusiasm, and I think it's important that people from who made a big difference, a big impact during those times, their stories need to be told. And I'm
Yeah,
so glad that Benny Golson's story is being told, and it's going to be done accurately.
yeah.
And the world's going to get to see and know who he is, because a new generation may not have ever heard of a Benny Golson. So now is a time where, thanks to you, they're going to know who he is.
Well, it's really sad to me because, well, this is sad. Um, there are a lot of Black stories coming out, like the Madam C.J. Walker uh, miniseries. Do you remember that a couple of years
Yes,
ago?
yes, yes.
I can be honest with you and candid, correct?
Well, people are going to be watching this, so.
Well, the hell with it. It was garbage, pure garbage, trash, because they lied in that story. They took her life and turned it into some kind of farce.
Mhm.
Just tell the actual story. If you tell the actual story and try to get it as truthful, as close to the truth as possible, it'll be phenomenal. The history of our people can either motivate you or break you.
Mm.
So when you tell the truth, it motivates. But when you play with that history, you're destroying, you're breaking a person because they're not getting the truth. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And a lie, have you ever known a lie to help somebody?
Oh, no.
Exactly. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, you see, and I'm using that because when it came out, there was a girl I was dating and she told me to watch it. She says, yeah. And then she began to tell me about Madam C.J. Walker, who I knew the story. I'd watched several documentaries, I read a couple of books, and she's telling me all these things. And this lady, and she tried, I said, that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
What? And then she said, oh, no, it was on the TV. I said, well, just because it's on the TV don't make it right. That doesn't make it true and correct,
Mm-hmm.
So if, my thing is tell the truth, if you're playing with history for entertainment purposes, yeah, okay. But the history of our people should never be played with for entertainment purposes.
Well, that's why for myself, I decided to put out Old Black Hollywood
I love
and
that.
be close to the fact as possible. And if I don't know, I have people like you to definitely educate myself and my viewers, my followers.
Yeah.
So therefore, I really appreciate you taking the time today to be on our show, to be a guest on Old Black Hollywood, because it's really important that we share and discuss and inform and enlighten people
Right.
about Old Black Hollywood, and to let people know that it is because of Benny Golson and people like him in the past that paved the way for people in the industry today.
There you
So
go.
that needs to be put out there, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing, and I love interviewing people like you who have more to say and more to add.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love Old Black Hollywood, and I
Oh,
love
thank
what
you.
you're doing. It's great. It's funny because you listen to the music in a film, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, as a black man, you don't think anything of it. It's just music. But if you realize that once upon a time, they didn't want niggas writing for movies.
Oh, be careful with the word, that word, the N word. Be careful with that word.
Well, I mean, no harm, but look, that is what we were from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Benny openly told me he was called a nigga to his face.
Wow. So sad.
And that's very sad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not something that, the history is not a pleasant thing. People got to realize sometimes you need to face the ugliness of it so you can appreciate where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
If you dress up what happened, then
I
nah,
agree.
yeah. I told someone this and they didn't understand. I said, I wish we could go back to segregation for one day so people could understand the freedoms that they have now and understand the sacrifices that were made.
Mm-hmm.
Benny Golson is a prime example. Quincy Jones is a prime example. They were told they could not do it, but they had someone to look up to, and Benny Carter. Benny Carter was I think the only black man at that time writing film and television.
Right.
He was
Right.
a
Right.
brilliant man,
Mm-hmm.
elegant, classy, and he was who they looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know who Benny Carter is. You see,
Mm-hmm.
we look at a Stephen Fetchit or a Hattie
Oh,
McDaniels,
yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and ugh, nah, no, 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 no. Miss McDaniels is somebody we should respect because if
Of
you didn't get a
course.
Hattie McDaniels, you wouldn't have a Lena Horne.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have a Madame Sultiwan, you wouldn't have had a Hattie McDaniels.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Mm-hmm.
There's Madame Sultiwan. I was reading an article about Madame Sultiwan, and nobody could figure out. They said they didn't know what her name meant. Well, my people are from Georgia, and we're Gullah. Madame Sultiwan, Madame Salty One.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name. You know
Mm-hmm.
who Madame Salty One
Yes,
is.
of course. Of course.
But most people, what is that? Nobody understood what her name meant. Madame Salty One. Salty
Mm-hmm.
One.
Instead, you know what? On my next show, I would love to talk about her on my next show. There's a lot to say about her.
Mhm.
What she sacrificed a whole lot for us. So definitely on my next show, I'm gonna definitely bring her up, talk about her. On
Yeah.
that note, JC, on that note, I want to say thank you for joining All Black Hollywood.
Oh, thank you,
And
Claire.
I really, really do hope your documentary comes through for Benny Golson. And I hope I get an invite because I'll be happy to go to
Of
support in
course.
person.
You-
All right.
Of
So
course.
thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being real like you are with me just now. I love that. And people, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my next show. And we'll discuss more old Black Hollywood actors and
Yeah.
musicians.